Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Hotel Tech Influencers and Innovators. I'm Glenn Haussman. That's Michael Frenkel. Michael, before we get started, I see you wearing a Met shirt. You're feeling pretty groovy here. Apparently, they're in first place, I hear.
Feeling it. Steve Cohen.
Yep.
Steve Cohen. Buck Showalter. It's our year. New York
Mets. That is awesome. And let me tell you, you deserve it. Every 30, 35 years or so, you deserve some positivity when it comes to baseball.
It's showtime, and there's no baseball fan like a New York Mets fan. So I'm here to say it's our year, baby. Check in with you in the fall.
All right. I love it. Speaking about check-in, Michael, as we're recording this, we are just a week out from the big HITEC conference going on in Orange County, Orlando. And I'm very excited about that. But it's also the middle of the year. So I thought today, for today's show, Michael, we're going to change things up a little bit because it strikes me, you, sir, are an influencer who is at the seat of innovation when it comes to hospitality technology. So I thought, what the heck, let's talk to you today. You all right with that?
Let's do it. Let's go to Orlando. Let's go to HITEC. Let's make it happen.
All right. So I think the first couple of questions I have for you, we can kind of combine. What are you thinking about right now at mid-year? How are things looking in the tech space? What's hot? What's going on? And how does all of that fit into HITEC?
Crazy year, Glenn. Yeah. Look, on the one hand, we're in this post-pandemic, environment where everybody kind of agrees. It's all about tech, right? It's all about efficiencies. It's about cost savings. How can we use tech to move from point A to point B? Been to a hotel lately? Gotten your room cleaned? Probably not, right? The hotel experience is changing. Operators coping with new kinds of pressures, and tech is seen as the way to go. So on the one hand, right? And investors are there with their checkbooks. On this show, I hope we're going to talk about some interesting young companies, some of the investors who are behind them, right? Pushing the ball forward on technology. On the other hand, the big R, right? Recession ahead, right? A little bit less money spent on technology. I was at the NYU show, flashed back a couple weeks ago, heard the panel with, Pat Pacious and
a lot of the other industries
and the other CEOs, right? And they were asked, what's your number one priority and what's your number one expenditure? It's technology, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on different aspects of the tech stack, right? On the one hand. On the other hand, does the recession mean tech spending is going to slow? Less innovative companies coming out of the box. So, converging pressures all coming together at HITEC. I think it's going to be an interesting show.
Well, if we look back to look forward, traditionally, the hospitality industry gets all excited about technology, and the first hiccup right after marketing and PR people, it seems to be that first line item that goes out there. Right? We've lived through both of those kind of universes over there. So I'm hoping this time makes a difference, because what I'm seeing is a lot of factors that are out there in the marketplace are different and wholly unique than we've seen before coming out of this weird COVID period. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I've lived long enough to say that the minute you say that this time is different, you realize nothing is different. Right. But, people would have said that to Henry Ford, right? Back in the early 1900s. This time it's different. We're really going to have motorized vehicles to take people around, and we're really going to automate the production system. Now it's not, well, guess what? It was different. People would have said it was different to Netflix, right? This time you're going to have on-demand TV. You're going to have get your preferences delivered to you right away. I think it's different this time, Glenn. I think the hotel industry has woken up to the fact that machines and technology are eating the hotel industry, right? It's been a long evolution, which we can discuss, but I think we're there. I think we've come to the point where the hotel industry, in many decisive respects, is becoming a tech-driven industry.
Excellent. And I completely agree with what you're saying. And I think one of the reasons why this time might be different is that the customers of hotels have changed. You mentioned it with the Netflix thing, and it got me thinking a little bit about how we rely on technology for absolutely everything in our lives, set against the backdrop of chatter within the hospitality industry that we need to give people more of what they expect from home. In fact, on the design side, they talk all about how now homes have much more than hotels could even have. And the only real bastion in order to find success will be through that technology element. Plus, Michael, when you talk about eliminating some expenses in back of house, things that don't interact with the guests directly, then I think we really start to have a winning formula, not necessarily for the technologies coming down, but for people experimenting with technology and actually making meaningful change.
Yeah, look, you talk about take a step back. Let's take a step back. I remember growing up in New Jersey, suburban New York City, and planning a trip with my family. My family, parents planning a trip.
I'm giggling because I know the next part is going to AAA.
Well, AAA is going to be in there. AAA, triptychs, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
But even before that, right? So it's Christmas time. We're driving New Jersey to Miami Beach to visit my great aunt, and we're planning this trip, right? How are we going to do that? All right, my mom's going to go. She's going to call AAA. She's going to get the book. Where are we going to stay in Miami Beach? We're going to stay at the Howard Johnson in Miami Beach. Excellent. Let's call the 800 number and reserve a room at the Howard Johnson. What room are we getting? What are the rates? Look, we don't know any of that, right? Call the 800 number, take what they give you. Then, now we're in November, we're going to Christmas time. Now it's time to wait by the mailbox. Why are we waiting by the mailbox? Because we're waiting for our confirmation to arrive from Howard Johnson in the mail. Okay.
Right.
Every day. Is it here? Is it here? Do we have a room? Is it confirmed? What's the price going to be? Now we're at the mailbox. We got the confirmation. We know we're going to have a room at the Howard Johnson. If it doesn't come, forgive me for putting this shit out of luck, right? I hope the room's there when we get there. Okay. Now we're in the car. We're driving to Miami Beach. How are we navigating our way? We're going to stop in Virginia. AAA, right? The triptych, the book. At Marriott. 3 stars, $69. 2 stars for Howard Johnson, $49. What do we do? Are they good hotels? I don't know. Let's go. Well, now you got TripAdvisor, right? You figure all that out. So beginning with booking, right, and search, take it up to the property. You got to the hotel. What did you do? You waited in line for 20 minutes to get your room. Did you get to select a room? No, you took the room you were given. Now you got mobile check-in, right? You're going to check into your room. You're going to use your personal device to get in the room. You're in the room. You got a problem. You're going to text your general manager, or you're going to text the hotel staff. They're going to take care of it, right? So, shift back to booking, right? I don't have to tell you that this was 1970s when these trips took place. Now we're in 2020s, and the value of the companies doing the bookings, right? Booking.com on the marketplace is greater than the value of Marriott, Hyatt, IHG, and Hilton put together.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So how has technology changed? Technology's changed everything, and it's not stopping here.
Right. And you need you look no further than your own life, because absolutely everything has changed. We're in a world where everything has become a digital. Look at our kids. They are digital natives, that first generation that grew up in a completely different universe than you or I did. I guarantee if I go and talk to my kids about the words triptych right now, I'll just get a blank stare. And for those young people that don't know what a triptych was, you go to the AAA office and they give you a map of where you're going to need to go. And they put a big highlight down and you flip from page to page to page as you continue your trip. It was a lot of fun to see them put the books together, and it was a lot of fun to use them. A lot easier to just type in my address now and go. No, I got to tell you that.
I'm telling you, Glenn, before we came on air, I was telling you, my daughter just graduated college. Rebecca, where are you going? Europe. Where are you going? 8 different countries. This is Friday. When are you leaving? Monday. How are you going to do all this? 8 hours at her computer. She's set. 8 different 8 different countries, 6 weeks, all done online, everything reserved, hostel to hostel. You're done. Compare that with one trip to Miami Beach in 1978 and the triptych, right?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So interesting. So the more that things change, the more that they stay the same. And what I'm talking about is the need for people to have better experiences in hotels. So when everyone is convening at HITEC, which is of course taking place the 27th through 30th of June at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, what are some going to be the big issues, in your opinion, that hoteliers and chief technologies officers and information officers are going to be looking at, thinking about, and hoping to find solutions for?
Well, listen, I'll give it to you from my daily work, right? Which cuts across different aspects of the hotel tech stack and involves investors and others. Look, you got to start with the PMS, right? Everything hinges on where the PMS is going, connectivity to the PMS, what's happened. Think about what's happened at in the PMS, right, over the past 10 or 20 years. PMS
Right.
used to be what? Micros,
Yeah.
Oracle, PMS, done,
Hmm.
right? Now a guy, Tyler Morse, MCI, goes and picks up a startup company from the Chinese called Stay in Touch,
Hmm.
right? Two young
I
kids.
think you meant MCR, not MCI.
What did I say? Did I say
Yep, you
MC?
said MCI. Yep.
Tyler, flog me. MCR. Tyler Morse,
You got
MCR.
too much information on your
Right,
mind.
right.
Yeah.
Look, 2014, I'm at the ITB show in Berlin.
Right.
I meet two young guys in ripped jeans and t-shirts. They're starting a company called Muse. They're based in Prague.
Hmm.
Suddenly you've got Muse, right?
Hmm.
Two young Indian guys figure out that it doesn't really matter all that much what the brands want or even what investors want.
Hmm.
It matters what the hoteliers want and need in a PMS system. And you've got microservices to deliver it customized, and you've got Hotel Key, right? You had a woman on a few weeks ago on your No Vacancy podcast, Georgine Muntz, brought
Hmm.
into a company called Visual Matrix,
Yep.
woman who has built, bought, and sold companies in the auto finance industry. And you've got Visual Matrix moving in a different direction. So it's the Wild West out there in a certain sense. But in another sense, this is a completely rational evolution. It's open to innovation and
Mhm.
discussion. So look, PMS, right? Issue number one. RMS, revenue management. Look, my starting in the hotel technology space began with Thayer Ventures,
Mhm.
the VC that I'm still involved in and work with, when they funded a company called Duetto, right?
Mhm.
Duetto came out of the grass from nowhere, and we had to figure out what they were doing differently in the revenue management space, realized that they had a set of tools which they claimed were different from anybody else. And we said, you know what, we're not going to call it revenue management anymore. We're going to call it revenue strategy now. Suddenly, it's about more than just pricing. It's about the factors that go into revenue management, help hotels optimize price. Flash forward a few years later, and Ideas, the incumbent in the space, is
Yep.
developing a long tail product which totally revolutionizes how individual hoteliers at the hotel level can do and finally take
Right.
advantage of revenue management, right? And so revenue strategy becomes revenue science. So RMS, right? PMS, RMS, hotel check-in, right? We've talked a little bit about it. It's a completely different experience than it was just a few years ago. And you've got up-team companies that are in the process of redoing the space. Last thing, and I'm going to let you, I'm sorry, you can tell I'm a little bit passionate here. I
I
love
love it. I don't know if you're
the
more passionate
space.
about technology or the Mets right now, Michael, but
It depends what time of day it is. This time of day, it's technology. Come 8
yep,
o'clock tonight, it's the
yep,
New York Mets, baby. But look, the last piece, we're working with one of these PMS companies, Stay in Touch. We're going to
right.
be sneak preview to the Haussman Frenkel audience. We're going to put out a
Nice.
major study at HITEC that Stay in Touch has done with NYU, talking about attribute-based selling, right? Attribute-based selling meaning break apart the different pieces of the hotel experience and sell them, right? We talked about Tyler Morse. Tyler Morse at his TWA hotel out at JFK Airport is selling time at the pool, right? You want time at
Right.
the pool, you pay for time at the pool. You don't want time at the pool, you don't need to pay for it, right? So can you sell time at the pool? Can you
Mhm.
sell a different view from your room? Can you sell the parking spot? Can
Right.
you sell certain aspects of F&B, right? One of the things that this study is going to show is that there's the potential for $8 trillion in value to be unlocked for hotels by
Right.
finally cracking the code and being able to sell individual attributes or experiences at hotels.
So what you're
Now,
talking about, Michael, is something very similar to what we've seen in the airline business to connect TWA, JFK together, which is called unbundling, splitting up all the different services and going on an a la carte menu almost.
absolutely, but let's be serious, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's middle seat versus aisle seat, and
Right.
it's coach versus premium versus first class. Think
Hmm.
about everything you've got to sell at a hotel,
Yeah.
right? You've got the view, you've got the location of the room, you've got the parking spot, you've got the pool, you've got the spa service, right? That's where that $8 trillion in value comes from. And the hotel brands are
Right.
chasing it, right? Amadeus and IHG have invested hundreds of millions of dollars to crack this code and figure out how to set that up
Mhm.
operationally and technically. The race is on, and a lot of people are going to make a lot of money when it gets done.
Yeah, I think so. So, where do you think the technology companies are going to really be making their money? And what I'm talking about are the best ideas you're seeing beyond what we already talked about when it comes to that tech and innovation space.
Yeah, listen, I want to say that each of those spaces has an opportunity. Look, just the PMS space is a mega $100 billion space, right?
Before we continue, let me just say, going back to what you were saying, there were just a couple of, providers of that service. And now with the internet the way it is and cloud computing, it's opened up opportunity for many, many more competitors to come in.
Yeah, and why shouldn't there be? Look, take you back to the beginning of the internet, right? I'm sure you
Mhm.
remember this, Glenn. You went on to AOL.com, didn't you? And
I
you dialed
did.
up, right?
I
Right?
remember the first time I went from 2,400 baud up to 9,600, and I
That,
could download a photograph in only 4 hours. It was
that
amazing.
great little annoying noise that you got when you went online, right? And everybody went on to AOL, right? But all of a sudden, there's Yahoo, and all of a sudden, there's additional outlets to be able to access the internet and do the work you want to do online, do the things you want to do online. And why shouldn't it be the same way in the hotel industry, right?
Right.
There's plenty of room for competition, there's plenty of room for innovation. So, look, I think in each of those areas, there's room for incredible growth and companies to make a whole lot of money and
Right.
brands and hoteliers to unlock a lot of value. I do think, I've been thinking about this lately. Um, Henry Ford got the automation correct. And that's a piece of what we see in the hotel
Right.
industry. We see automated everything, housekeeping, figuring out how to service guests, figuring out how to optimize your revenue on the one hand. On the other hand, there's the Netflix piece, right?
Yeah.
Which is the guest experience, delivering the guest what they want, when they want it, and providing a variety of options.
Mhm.
So I think, Ford plus Flicks, I don't know, Ford Flicks, the meaning of those two pieces, the back of the house automation and the front of the house guest experience is going to give us the path to the future. Where's it going to come from?
Yeah.
Now, I think about Airbnb and those two young guys out there at the 2008, was it 2008 or 2012 convention, selling Obama oats from a box, right, in order to fund this idea that they have that people could share their spaces
Mhm.
and uh, could maximize the space in an apartment or home and make it a hotel accommodation space. Now you've got Airbnb, right?
Yeah,
Which
so
is,
was Airbnb, successful at
yeah,
all?
I think they've done okay. So look,
Yeah.
with all we're discussing, the many startups, the innovators, the influencers, the investors, all the money behind this from the brands, from private equity, from VC, what still matters at the end of the day, good ideas, a bunch of grit,
Mhm.
and young guys and gals who are willing to get out there and make it happen. I'm going to
Yeah.
be looking for them at HITEC, and they're there. I guarantee they're there.
Now, according to the Google machine, Airbnb was founded in August of 2008, just before the American economy came undone with the housing crisis and all of that kind of stuff that really sent us into a recession. Now we seem to be in a similar point, different causes for the recession, but on the cusp of one, and that housing issue may cause some problems too. But I'm curious as to how are you seeing investment at this point in time as we're heading into a potentially darker period? Because those Airbnb folks started just before a dark period. They came out of it all right. They must have gotten their funding. How are things today?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, 2020, I mean, in spite of the pandemic, 2020 was a strong year for funding startups in the space.
Really? Yeah.
2021,
Mhm.
we had this whole SPAC thing, right? Where there's sort of a ton of money flying around and looking to go to work. I think it's reasonable to expect that 2022 into 2023 is going
Mhm.
to rationalize that a little bit. It's going to slow down. The purse strings are going to tighten a little bit, but that's a good thing in the long run, right? I mean, some companies will not make it, right? And some of the
Mhm.
big ideas will fall flat, but it's going to force the operators to really focus on what their business is, what their core value is. Now, maybe spend their money a little bit more carefully and figure out what's really, really needed in the industry. So I think it's gonna bring a discipline to the process. And I think that at the end of the day, eyes on the prize, the companies that really have it, the founders that really have it, the brands that are spending the money wisely are going to figure it out and are going to come out stronger on the other end. There's going to be some litter on the side of the road, right? There
Right.
always is. Sorry to put it that way, but
Yeah.
um, you know, in the end, the trajectory is upwards and forwards. And Glenn, it's an open question
Yeah.
it's always an open question what the recession is going to look like, if there's going to be one. um, they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, they always do figure it
Always,
out because things
always do.
just keep on ticking. Plus, I mean, it's a natural part of the economic cycle to have ups and downs. So none of us should be surprised. All right. I think we're going to head into my fourth, fifth, 20th recession of my lifetime. I don't know. We're all still standing here. But you're talking about it's not just money, it's not just a good idea. It's also the people that are involved. What is the formula that you think that makes for a successful startup that can go from startup into one of those household names in hospitality that we know?
Listening, listening. It's the best founders and the best investors and the best brand executives I've ever met were the best listeners I've ever met. If you're listening to the marketplace, if you're
Mhm.
listening to what hoteliers really need to run their businesses better, and if you're really listening to where the marketplace is going and what consumers want, then you're going to figure out where the need
Right.
is. Then beyond that, it's about creativity. It's about designing the right kinds of solutions. These days, you got to have the right data scientists. You've got to have the right tech behind it. It's about the creativity and the connectivity to
Right.
hook up with funding and to find the right partners. And then it's about grit and persistence, right? It's about taking that idea from point A to point B to point C, bringing it to market. Um, a founder that I worked with some years ago at the beginning of their seed round, I said, you want to be $1 billion company. What is it going to take to be $1 billion company?
Right.
And his response was, we're going to have to make one strategic decision every 6 months on
Right.
which we bet the entire future of the company. And we're going to
Mhm.
have to do it right every single time between here and $1 billion. And if we do it right every single time, we'll reach that $1 billion.
Uh, Might get better odds in Vegas,
Could get
honestly.
better odds. That's why it's a lottery ticket, right? And
Yeah.
that's why it's incredibly hard to do and incredibly hard to find the winners.
Right.
But listen, I mean, we've had some guys on this podcast in
Mhm.
the past several weeks who have
Yep.
done just that, right? Lee Pillsbury and Thayer Ventures have found some winners. Raj Trivedi backing some
Yep.
interesting young companies. Go with the smart money.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So you're talking about listening, but I also think part of it is critical listening. Not, I talk a lot about critical thinking in my speeches and on No Vacancy and here. And the reason why I say critical listening is because if you listen to exactly what people say, then you're going to wind up with that Henry Ford situation. If I listened to people, I'd create, that all they wanted was a faster horse. So how do these smart people distinguish between what people are saying and what will actually fuel future success?
So, look, there's an element of market testing, right? If you've been around the space long enough, you know where to go to get the right opinions to
Right.
evaluate whether an idea is an A, B, or a C, or a D. So the network is critical, right? Surround yourself with smart people, surround yourself with people who have seen 80, 100 different startups. That's about how many I've seen in the past
Right.
10 years of working in this space. And you pretty quickly start being able to identify, the wheat from the chaff. So draw on your network, draw on the smartest people around you, validate the tech, validate the business plan, and most importantly, validate the core of the people you're dealing with, right? At the end of the day, sorry, we're going to say it. We say it on every podcast. It is a people business. Every people is a people business. And it's about the founders and what they have inside them that's going to make it a success.
All right. So, being that you're a Mets fan and you love baseball so much, a great batting average is what? 333 once every third time up at bat,
Yeah.
give or take, 400 batters considered amazing. What about people that are investing in tech companies? What kind of batting average are they seeing in general? I don't need to know any specific investors. And
300, listen, as you say, Glenn, a 300 batting average, which is 3 for 10, is good
yeah,
enough to make you an all-star year after year. I think folks in the tech investing space would be absolutely thrilled for a 300 batting average.
right,
Even 200, even 100 works
right.
as long as you find the winner.
$1 billion company.
Uh,
Right.
yeah. So, listen, at the end of the day, like everything else, it's the law of numbers. It's figuring out where the companies are. It's figuring how much to allocate in which directions. And if you can hit 250
Yeah.
as a tech investor, you're hitting well for
Yeah.
sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about the big brands? I go to all the annual conferences, Michael, and for the last few years, they're starting to say we're no longer a hotel company, we're a technology company. Is that just well-meaning speak, or are you actually seeing at the brand level real transformation into what they're proclaiming?
Well, two things, Glenn. One, I think it's just amazing and for me personally rewarding that they're saying that at this point,
Yeah.
right? I mean, 10 years ago, when I think about getting involved in the tech space for the first time, right, there were these two different conversations happening in the industry, right? There
Right.
was the development conversation,
Mhm.
and then there was the tech conversation. There's the asset conversation. And then somewhere over here, there's tech and marketing and the stuff that drives innovation. Now you've got Wyndham and Choice pointing to the importance of revenue management on their earnings calls, right? And the
Right.
importance of profit optimization, right? The brand executives, the investors, the shareholders, Wall Street are starting to pay attention, right? This is the stuff that drives good business. So, on the one hand, we've come a long way, and you can see that reflected in the language and in the ways that hotel brand executive describes what's going on. On the other hand, I did a roundtable of C-suite executives at NYU, closed door roundtable,
Yep.
and the number one observation from the group is that what's ultimately going to drive adoption and fast adoption among the brands is the franchisees, right? If the franchisees can be convinced and embrace the fact that technology is going to make them more money, put more money in their pocket, and that the brands, as the conduit of the innovation and the technology, can put better tools in the pockets of the franchisees, right? That's ultimately what's going to drive adoption. It's about franchisees, it's about the owners. They have an incredible amount of power in their hands. Been doing a lot of work lately with
Mhm.
AHOA, right? And some of these technology companies to make it clear to the hotel owners what the benefits of tech. Listen, you're running a hotel, it's a 50 room, Super 8 red roof, right? You're spending your time at the front desk. You're spending your time figuring out your mortgage. Not easy to think about technology and these big global issues on what's going to help your business. Yet we got to make that connection somehow, right? And the franchisees and the owners have to line up behind the importance of innovation, and they're doing it. They're starting to demand of the brands that they give them the tools to run their business better.
And I really hope that then they utilize those tools, because one of the weakest links I see in hospitality, and to defend the big brands here, is they put out all these great empowerment tools to make their hotels most successful. And, you got that 80-20 rule. 20% don't even use any of that stuff. And then they complain that the brands don't do anything.
Look, you can lead a horse to water, right?
Exactly.
But I would say this, let's not forget that it's a different generation of hoteliers now, right?
And we're starting to see folks that maybe not pure digital natives, but have a much more fundamental understanding of how technology will help their bottom line through smart investments, right?
Well, listen, I'm a young hotel GM. If I can't run this thing on my mobile phone, I'm not going to run this thing, right? I'm going somewhere else, right? It's got to happen right here. It's going to happen tech driven. So I think that, I think that the new generation coming up is going to embrace this stuff, is going to embrace innovation. But as an industry, we need to continue to keep developing the language and the conversations to make it clear to the owners and other folks in the industry the importance of innovation in our space.
And that right there in a nutshell is what we're doing here on the Hospitality Tech, Influencers and Innovators podcast, or Innovators and Influencers, because, without us communicating all of this stuff, there's a definitive hole in the market. And I'm really glad that we're able to have a forum in which to educate and empower people on the importance of technology and what decision makers should be doing. So besides our incredible programs, where else are, people learning about what technologies they should be including in their tech stack?
Well, tip my New York Mets cap to you, Glenn, because it's not just here on the Hotel Tech podcast, but it's on No Vacancy, and it's on the public appearances, and it's what you do for the industry. It's what the media is doing. It's what our trade publications are slowly coming around to realize, that this is a space. Listen, the position of trade shows in our space is another interesting discussion, which we could do a whole program around, right? Totally. They continue to be forums for information, and important forums. Interestingly, what you're finding at trade shows is that a lot of the best conversation is happening, from center stage when 5 CEOs are speaking to the group, but it's in the more informal settings, right? Which are kind of growing up organically, round tables, private discussions, private gatherings, in which a lot of innovation is being discussed and examined. So clearly a spot for that. And listen, Chip and H and LA, the folks at AHOA, I mean, these are the conduits for information of our industry. They still are. And each one of them is getting behind tech and innovation in their own way. So our job is to continue to prod that forward. And I don't know, maybe a future guest for one of our podcasts here, right? One of those organizations where they can discuss what they're doing to push the ball forward.
I'd like them. Let's just tell them that it's off the record and then just run it anyway. So we'll get the real scoop from
Fair enough.
Michael, one of the things I've known you now way too long, right? So, one thing I didn't realize, I never made the connection. How did you actually transition from being traditional hotel PR guy, working with some of the most venerable brands in our industry, to pretty much exclusively, almost not entirely, but focusing on technology?
I got lucky. No, listen, I'm going to go back to our first guest, which was Lee Pillsbury, right? Who is a mentor and a mover and shaker in the industry. I'd worked with Lee at his company, Thayer Lodging, and up to that time had been a PR guy, marketing guy on the asset side, right? Working with hotels, owners, telling their stories. And one day in about 2011, 12, was having coffee with Lee, and he said, Michael, you ought to have a look at hospitality technology. Now, when a guy like Lee says you ought to have a look, that means
You should
look,
do it.
right?
Yeah.
I said, yes, sir. How high? And I did have a look. And what I found, look, I found a place of personal passion. I found a place where traditional hotel values of service and guest experience and accommodation met real energy and information. And look, I came up through the space with HFS Incorporated, Sendent Corporation, represented everybody through the years from, Howard Johnson to Hilton to the most luxurious.
Right.
You remember our gig at a PR firm that shall never be named
Yep.
in New York, where we represented luxury brands and hotels.
Mhm.
Sort of interesting, fascinating, great stuff. Wonderful industry that everybody loves to be a part of it. But
Right.
where's the energy? The energy is here, folks. The energy is with the innovators. The energy is with the visionaries who are pushing things forward, and it's been delightful. So from that coffee with Lee Pillsbury, I found a new home in hospitality, and it's just been remarkable to see over the past 10 years how the conversation has evolved and the space has evolved. And
Right.
I think the next 10 years is going to be bigger, faster, and bolder. So buckle up as the Mets win 5 World Series in that next 10 years.
All right.
We're going to see an altogether new hospitality innovation space.
I like it. Now, for the younger people out there, Michael's referring to HFS and Sendent. Those companies have pretty much become the modern Wyndham company that you all know today. Before we wrap up, Michael, you're talking a little bit about, closed door conversations and stuff like that. You're actually fomenting those conversations, right? You're creating that atmosphere over there. What's going on with travel conversations and what's next for you?
Yeah, look, I mean, the philosophy has always been that there is a lot that there's a lot of great broad industry conversation, as we say, right? And you've got organizations and trade shows that speak to the mass audience in the industry and do it very, very well. The trade publications, no vacancy. My sense was a few years ago that there's got to be a space for decision makers to get together and exchange their views in ways that can at the same time be recorded, memorialized, and push the industry forward. So Travel Conversations, a consultancy, we're doing closed door, private roundtables to push these conversations forward, and then sharing the content with the industry at large. We've found it to be incredibly successful. We find that people want to have peer-to-peer best of practice discussions, that a lot of times those discussions are not had in the glare of the public eye, but are best done casually and informally. And so as Plato from the University of Chicago, where I hail from, would have said, let the logos grow from more to more, right? Bring interesting people in the room and let them talk to one another. And that's what we're doing. So we're working in that space. We continue to help out companies with strategic communications, figuring out where they fit in this very complex ecosystem, how they get their brands out there. And thanks to partners like you, Glenn, the future looks bright.
Yeah, so bright, and I'm excited about it. But the future is really up to you folks out there. How much are you going to invest technology? What technologies are you going to invest in to make sure that your business is energized, to make sure your guests are happy, and to make sure you don't have as much of a reliance on physical labor as much as computer labor where possible? And Michael, the one thing that I would say is, as people continue down this path, make sure that you focus on creating great customer service with people at the forefront and leverage technology for the stuff that doesn't immediately affect those meaningful interactions at the property level.
Absolutely. It's all about people. It's all about the connections, and internet provides great connection, and web 2.3.4.0 provides great connections, but it's still people connecting with people, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, it sure is. Michael, how can we learn more about you? Since I interviewed you, you get a shameless plug this week.
Well, I don't know. You could go to www.mfcpr.com. MFCPR is the PR firm where we help a lot of the industry luminaries move forward. You can find me right here on the Hotel Tech Podcast with yours truly, Glenn Haussman. And maybe in row 3 in section 318 at Citi Field come August, when the Mets will be ready to lock up the National East.
Nice. All right. I love it. Maybe I'll get to see you at a Met game as well this year. And to everybody, we'll see you at HITEC. I'll be broadcasting live from there. So be sure to say hello to myself and be sure to tune in to No Vacancy Live 3 days a week, plus Friday night audit, Friday nights at 5 o'clock, where we have cocktails, conversations, and hopefully a little comedy. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you right back here next time on the Hotel Tech Podcast. Thank you so much.